Ryan Mitchell sat in his truck outside the elementary school, watching the clock on his dashboard tick closer to 3:15. His phone buzzed for the third time in 10 minutes. His boss again? The message was short and direct. Where are you? They needed him back at the construction site. A problem with the foundation pour. Something only he could fix, apparently. He rubbed his tired eyes and typed back a quick response. Family emergency. Be there in an hour. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. The truth was messier. The truth was that he was a 33-year-old single father who'd just lost his babysitter, and his 6-year-old twin daughters were about to get out of school with nowhere to go. The school bell rang, and within seconds children poured out of the building like water from a burst pipe. Ryan climbed out of his truck, still wearing his dusty work boots and high-vis vest. He spotted them immediately, Mia and Zoe, identical twins with dark curly hair pulled into ponytails that were already coming loose. Mia saw him first and her face lit up. "Daddy," she shouted, running toward him. Zoe followed close behind, quieter as always but smiling. He caught them both in a hug, breathing in the smell of classroom crayons and cafeteria pizza. For just a moment the stress melted away. These girls were his entire world. Everything he did, every extra shift he worked, every sacrifice he made, it was all for them. "Where's Miss Karen?" Zoe asked, looking around with those big brown eyes that reminded him so much of their mother. Ryan's chest tightened. Karen had been their babysitter for 8 months. Reliable, affordable, good with the girls. Yesterday she'd called to say her daughter in Florida had a medical emergency. She was leaving on a plane that same evening. She was sorry. She felt terrible. But family came first and she didn't know when she'd be back. Ryan understood. Family did come first. That's why he was standing here instead of being at work where his boss needed him. Miss Karen had to go help her family, Ryan explained, keeping his voice light. "So today you two get to hang out with me at work for a little bit." "Really?" Mia's eyes went wide with excitement. She was the adventurous one, always ready for something new. Zoe looked less thrilled. She liked routine. She liked knowing what came next. Changes made her anxious, and Ryan could see that worry already creeping into her expression. The afternoon at the construction site was exactly the disaster Ryan had expected. The girls tried their best to stay out of the way, sitting in his truck with their tablets and snacks. But they were 6. 6-year-olds couldn't sit still for 3 hours while their father worked. Mia got bored and wandered toward the equipment. Zoe needed to use the bathroom twice. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, Ryan's boss pulled him aside with a look that said everything without words. This couldn't happen again. That evening, after frozen chicken nuggets and a bath that soaked the bathroom floor, Ryan sat at his laptop while the girls watched cartoons. He scrolled through babysitting websites, his heart sinking with each click. $25 an hour, $30 an hour, minimum 4-hour shifts, background check fees, agency registration costs. The numbers swam in front of his eyes, each one representing money he simply didn't have. His construction foreman salary was decent, but not decent enough. Not when you factored in the medical bills still trickling in from 2 years ago. Not when you were doing it alone. Not when every spare dollar went into a savings, account marked college, fund because he'd be damned if his daughters didn't have, opportunities he never had. He opened a free community website and started typing. Single, father needs reliable after-school care for twin girls age 6, Monday through Friday 3 to 7 p.m. Light meal prep. Homework help. References required. $15 per hour. His finger hovered over the post button. $15 an hour was all he could manage. Would anyone even respond? He clicked post and closed the laptop. "Daddy, I'm thirsty," Mia called from the couch. "Me too," Zoe added. Ryan smiled despite his exhaustion. "Water or milk?" "Chocolate milk?" "We don't have chocolate milk, sweetheart." "Then we should get some." "Added to the list," he said, getting up to pour 2 glasses of regular milk. The responses started coming in the next morning while Ryan was on site, balancing on a steel beam 20 feet in the air. His phone buzzed in his pocket repeatedly. During his lunch break, he sat in his truck and opened the messages. Most were immediate rejections. Too far from their location. Hours didn't work. Pay was too low. One woman was honest enough to write that she made more working at the Target down the street. Ryan felt his hope deflating with each message. Maybe he'd have to quit his job. Find something with regular hours that paid less. set his career back 5 years. But what choice did he have? Then he saw it. A message that was different from the others. "Hi, my name is Claire. I'm interested in the babysitting position. I have experience with children and I love working with kids. The hours and pay work perfectly for my schedule. I have references available. Would it be possible to meet and talk?" The message was simple, straightforward, and didn't mention anything about the low pay being a problem. Ryan read it 3 times, looking for the catch. There had to be a catch, he typed back quickly. "Can you meet today after 3? I'll be picking up my daughters from school." The response came within minutes. "I can be there. Just send me the address." That afternoon, Ryan arrived at the school early again. His boss hadn't said anything, but Ryan could feel the tension. One more week of this and he'd probably be looking for a new job anyway. He parked and waited, watching parents and caregivers gather for pickup. His phone buzzed. "I'm here. I'm wearing a blue jacket and I'm by the front steps." Ryan looked toward the school entrance and spotted her immediately. A young woman, probably mid-20s, with long dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a blue denim jacket. She looked normal, approachable. She was looking at her phone, occasionally glancing up at the parents around her. Ryan walked over, suddenly aware of how dirty his work clothes were. He probably smelled like concrete dust and sweat. "Claire?" he asked. She looked up and smiled. It was a genuine smile, the kind that reached her eyes. "You must be Ryan. Nice to meet you." They shook hands. Her grip was firm but not aggressive. She didn't seem put off by his appearance, which was a good sign. "Thanks for coming on short notice," Ryan said. "My situation is kind of urgent. I lost my babysitter yesterday and I'm scrambling." "I completely understand," Claire said. "Childcare emergencies are stressful. Tell me about your daughters." Before Ryan could answer, the school bell rang. He held up a finger. "Actually, you're about to meet them." The girls came running out minutes later and Ryan saw them slow down when they noticed the stranger standing next to their father. Mia approached cautiously, which was unusual for her. Zoe hid partially behind her sister. "Girls, this is Miss Claire," Ryan said gently. "She might be helping take care of you after school." "Can you say hello?" "Hello," Mia said quietly. Zoe just stared. Claire crouched down to their level, which Ryan immediately appreciated. She didn't tower over them or invade their space. "Hi, Mia." "Hi, Zoe," she said warmly. "Your dad told me you're twins. That's so cool. I always wanted a twin when I was little." "We're not exactly the same," Mia said, warming up slightly. "I have a freckle here and Zoe doesn't." She pointed to a tiny spot near her ear. "Ah, I see," Claire said seriously. "That's an important difference. And what's your favorite thing to do after school?" "I like to draw," Zoe said softly, finally speaking up. "I like to play outside," Mia said. "Both of those sound fun," Claire replied. "I'm not the best artist, but maybe you could teach me, Zoe. And Mia, I love being outside too." Ryan watched the interaction carefully. Claire wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't using that overly cheerful voice some adults used with kids. She was just talking to them like they were people. The girls seemed to sense that. "Can we go to the park?" Mia asked, looking between Claire and Ryan. Ryan checked his watch. He was already pushing it with work, but this felt important. "How about we all go to the park for 20 minutes? That way you girls can get to know Miss Claire and I can talk to her about the job." The small park was just 2 blocks from the school. Ryan pushed the girls on the swings while Claire stood nearby. He explained his situation as concisely as he could. Single father. Lost his wife 2 years ago. Working construction. Needed someone Monday through Friday, 3 to 7. Pick up from school, take them home, give them a snack. Help with homework, start dinner. Nothing complicated. Just someone reliable and kind. "The pay isn't great," Ryan said honestly, watching Mia pump her legs on the swing. "I posted $15 an hour because that's what I can afford right now." "If that doesn't work for you, I understand." Claire was quiet for a moment, watching Zoe, who'd moved to the slide. "The pay is fine," she finally said. "Money isn't my main concern right now. I'm looking for something meaningful. I like kids. I like helping. This feels right." Ryan studied her face, trying to read her. Who was this person? Young 20-something women usually wanted more than $15 an hour to watch kids. But he wasn't in a position to question good fortune. "Do you have your references?" he asked. Claire pulled out her phone and showed him a list of names and numbers. "These are families I've worked with before. You can call any of them. I also have a background check from 6 months ago if you want to see it. That would be great, Ryan said. She pulled up a document on her phone showing a clear background check. Everything looked legitimate. Can I ask you something? Ryan said. Why this job? You seem qualified for something that pays more. Claire watched the girls for a moment before answering. I'm taking some time to figure out what I really want to do with my life. I'm between things right now, and honestly, I missed working with kids. My last family moved out of state, and I've been looking for the right fit. When I saw your post, something about it felt genuine, like you really cared about finding the right person, not just anyone. Ryan felt something in his chest loosen slightly. These girls are my whole world, he said quietly. I just want someone who'll treat them with kindness. I can promise you that, Claire said. Daddy, push me higher. Mia shouted. Ryan gave her swing a big push, and her delighted laughter filled the air. When he looked over, he saw Claire smiling at the sound. That evening, after he'd dropped the girls at his sister's house for a few hours, Ryan called all 3 references Claire had provided. Each person had glowing things to say. Responsible, great with kids, trustworthy, patient. One mother actually said that her daughter still asked about Miss Claire months after she'd stopped working for them. The background check was legitimate. Everything was checking out. At 8 p.m., Ryan sent Claire a text message. The job is yours if you want it. Can you start tomorrow? The response came quickly. Yes, thank you so much. I won't let you down. Ryan leaned back on his couch, feeling the weight of stress lift just slightly from his shoulders. Maybe this would work. Maybe Claire was exactly what they needed. A voice in the back of his head whispered that it seemed too good to be true, but he pushed it aside. Sometimes you just got lucky. Sometimes things worked out. He had no idea that Claire was sitting in a luxury apartment across town, looking out at a view of the city lights. No idea that she'd turned off her phone so her father's calls would stop coming through. No idea that her real last name wasn't the one she'd given him. No idea that the simple life she was stepping into was the complete opposite of the life she'd been living. Claire set her phone down and let out a long breath. Tomorrow she'd pick up 2 little girls from school. She'd take them home to a modest house in a regular neighborhood. She'd help them with homework and make them snacks. And for those 4 hours, she'd be exactly who she wanted to be. Not an heiress, not a future CEO, just Claire, just herself. Claire arrived at the school at exactly 2:55 on her first day. She'd left her apartment an hour earlier than necessary, taking the bus instead of calling her driver. The bus ride had been an experience. Crowded, noisy. A man had stepped on her foot. But she'd felt more alive during those 30 minutes than she had in months of being chauffeured around in leather seats. She spotted Ryan's truck in the parking lot and walked over. He was leaning against it, looking at his phone with that worried expression she'd already started to recognize. When he saw her, his face relaxed. You're early, he said. Didn't want to risk being late on day 1, Claire replied. I appreciate that. He glanced toward the school. Listen, I made you a key to the house. And here's a credit card for emergencies or food. Just keep the receipts, okay? Claire took the key and card, feeling their weight in her hand. Trust. He was giving her trust. In her world, people signed contracts and NDAs before trust ever entered the picture. This felt different. This felt real. I'll take good care of them, she said. I know you will. Ryan checked his watch. I've got to get back to work. My number's in your phone. Call me if anything comes up. Anything at all. We'll be fine, Claire assured him. Go, don't worry. The bell rang and children flooded out. Claire saw the twins emerge, both scanning the crowd. When they spotted her, Mia waved enthusiastically. Zoe's wave was smaller, more hesitant. Claire waved back, feeling a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She'd told Ryan she had experience with kids, which was true, but those had been carefully supervised playdates and charity events. This was different. This was real responsibility. Hi, Miss Claire. Mia ran up to her. Where's Daddy? He had to go to work, but he said to tell you both he loves you and he'll see you tonight. Zoe took Claire's hand without being asked. It was such a simple gesture, but it made Claire's heart squeeze. This little girl was choosing to trust her. Okay, Zoe said quietly. Can we go home now? The walk to Ryan's house was only 6 blocks. Claire had memorized the route the night before using her phone. The neighborhood was older, with small houses that had clearly seen decades of life. Some lawns were perfectly maintained, others less so. Kids' bikes lay in driveways. American flags hung from porches. It was the kind of neighborhood Claire had only seen in movies. Ryan's house was a small brick ranch with a detached garage. The grass needed mowing. Paint was peeling slightly around the windows, but there were flower boxes under the front windows and someone had hung a wind chime by the door. "Mommy planted those flowers," Mia said, pointing to the boxes. "Daddy keeps them watered." Claire felt a lump form in her throat. "They're beautiful." Inside, the house was clean but lived in. Toys in a basket by the couch. School artwork held to the refrigerator with magnets. 2 small pairs of shoes by the door. Everything was modest but maintained with care. Claire thought of her father's house with its marble floors and professional decorators. Nothing there felt lived in. Nothing there felt like a home. "I'm hungry," Mia announced, dropping her backpack on the floor. "Backpacks go on the hooks," Zoe said, hanging hers up properly. "Daddy's rule." "Right, thank you, Zoe." Claire picked up Mia's backpack and handed it to her. "Hooks, please." Mia rolled her eyes but complied. Claire made a mental note. Mia would test boundaries. Zoe would follow rules. In the kitchen, Claire opened the refrigerator and found it stocked with basics. Milk, eggs, cheese, some vegetables, chicken breasts. The pantry had pasta, rice, canned goods, peanut butter. She could work with this. "What do you girls normally have for a snack?" "Miss Karen made us apple slices with peanut butter," Zoe said. "We have apples," Claire said, finding them in the crisper. "And I saw peanut butter in the pantry." Apple slices it is. She'd never actually cut an apple into slices before. At home, if she wanted fruit, the kitchen staff prepared it and arranged it artfully on a plate. She studied the apple, grabbed a knife, and started cutting. The slices came out uneven and chunky. One piece fell on the floor. "You're not very good at that," Mia observed. "Mia, that's rude," Zoe said. "No, she's right," Claire laughed. "I'm not very good at it. Maybe I need more practice." She arranged the imperfect slices on a plate with peanut butter in a small bowl and set it on the table. The girls climbed into their chairs and dug in. Mia ate like she was racing someone. Zoe took small, careful bites. "Do you have homework?" Claire asked. Both girls groaned in unison, which made Claire smile. "I'll take that as a yes. How about we get it done first, then we can do something fun?" "Like what?" Mia asked suspiciously. "I don't know yet. What do you like to do?" "Play outside," Mia said immediately. "Draw," Zoe added. "We could do both," Claire suggested. "Maybe draw outside?" The girls looked at each other, some silent twin communication passing between them. Then they nodded. Homework took longer than Claire expected. Mia rushed through hers, making careless mistakes that Claire gently pointed out. Zoe worked slowly and methodically, erasing and rewriting until each letter was perfect. Claire sat with them at the kitchen table, helping sound out words and counting on fingers for math problems. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, she pulled it out and glanced at the screen. 7 missed calls from her father. 3 texts from her assistant. She turned the phone to silent and put it face down on the table. "Is someone trying to call you?" Zoe asked, noticing. "Just work stuff," Claire said. "Nothing important right now." "You two are what's important." It was the truth, she realized. For these 4 hours, nothing else mattered. After homework, they went outside. The backyard was small but fenced, with a swing set that had seen better days and a sandbox that probably needed fresh sand. Claire sat on the back steps while the girls played. Mia immediately claimed the swing. Zoe sat in the sandbox with a stick, drawing patterns. Claire pulled out her phone again. 11 missed calls now. She sighed and called her father back. "Where have you been?" Richard Chen's voice was sharp. "I've been calling for hours. I was busy." "What's wrong?" "Busy with what?" "You said you needed time to think." "That doesn't explain ignoring my calls." Claire watched Mia swing higher and higher. "I'm working." There was a pause. "Working?" "Doing what?" "That's my business, Dad." "Claire, whatever game you're playing, that I'm not playing a game. I'm figuring things out, like I told you I needed to do." Another pause, longer this time. "Fine, but the board meeting is in 2 weeks. You promised you'd be there." Claire had forgotten about the board meeting, or maybe she'd deliberately not thought about it. "I'll be there. And the charity gala on Saturday? I'll let you know," Claire said and hung up before he could argue. She sat there for a moment staring at her phone. 2 worlds. She was trying to live in 2 worlds and it was already getting complicated. "Miss Claire, watch me," Mia called, jumping off the swing at the peak of its arc. Claire's heart jumped into her throat. "Mia, be careful." "She always does that," Zoe said calmly, not looking up from her sand drawings. "Daddy says she's fearless. Fearless or reckless?" Claire muttered, but she was smiling. They stayed outside until the sun started getting lower in the sky. Claire checked the time. 5:30. Ryan had said he'd be home around 7. She should probably start thinking about dinner. Back inside, Claire opened the refrigerator and stared at its contents. She'd told Ryan she could handle meal prep, but the truth was she'd never actually cooked a meal from scratch in her life. At home, there was a chef. In college, there was a meal plan. Even in her apartment now, she ordered in or ate out. "What does your dad usually make for dinner?" she asked. "Spaghetti," Mia said. "Chicken nuggets," Zoe said at the same time. "Tacos," they both said together, then giggled. Claire found a box of pasta in the pantry and a jar of sauce. Spaghetti. She could handle spaghetti. You boiled water and cooked pasta. How hard could it be? Pretty hard, as it turned out. She filled a pot with water and put it on the stove, turning the burner to high. The girls had moved to the living room where they were watching cartoons. Claire stood in the kitchen, watching the pot, willing it to boil. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. The water finally started bubbling. Claire dumped the entire box of pasta into the pot. It immediately overflowed, water sloshing onto the stovetop and sizzling on the burner. She grabbed the pot, burning her hand slightly, and pulled it off the heat. Water splashed onto the floor. "Everything okay in there?" Zoe called. "Totally fine." Claire called back, shaking her burned hand and looking at the mess. "Just cooking." She reduced the heat, put the pot back, and stood there feeling like an idiot. She had an MBA from an Ivy League school. She'd given presentations to rooms full of executives. She'd negotiated million-dollar deals. But she couldn't cook pasta without causing a disaster. By the time Ryan walked through the door at 7:15, Claire had managed to produce something resembling spaghetti. The pasta was slightly mushy. The sauce was cold because she'd forgotten to heat it. But it was edible. "Daddy." The girls ran to him and he caught them both in a hug. "How was your day?" he asked, looking at each of them carefully. "Good," Mia said. "Miss Claire can't cut apples very good, but she's nice." "Can't cut apples well," Ryan corrected gently, looking at Claire with amusement. "And she made spaghetti." Zoe added, "It's a little mushy." "Wow, thank you, Miss Claire," Ryan said, and Claire could see he was trying not to laugh. "I'm not much of a cook," Claire admitted, "but I'm learning." After Ryan took over dinner duties, making the meal actually appetizing, he walked Claire to the door. The evening air was cool and quiet. Somewhere down the street, someone was mowing their lawn. "First day survival?" Ryan asked. "Barely," Claire laughed. "I have a lot to learn about cooking. And apple cutting, apparently. They liked you. That's what matters." He pulled out his wallet and counted out cash. $60. 4 hours at 15. Claire took the money, feeling strange about it. This was probably less than she spent on coffee in a week, but she'd earned it. She'd actually earned it with her own hands and time. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked. "If you're willing to come back after today's cooking adventure." "I'll be here," Claire promised. "And I'm watching YouTube cooking videos tonight." Ryan laughed, a real genuine laugh that made him look younger. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to care, and I can already see that you do." Walking to the bus stop, Claire felt lighter than she had in months. Her feet hurt. She smelled like pasta sauce. She had a small burn on her hand, and she was happier than she'd been in any boardroom or gala. Her phone buzzed with another text from her father. She looked at it, then put the phone away. Tomorrow she'd deal with that world. Tonight she'd just be Claire, who couldn't cut apples but was learning. Claire, who made mushy spaghetti but tried her best. Claire, who was finally genuinely herself. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Claire arrived at school each day at 2:55. She walked the girls home. They did homework at the kitchen table. She slowly, painfully learned to cook basic meals. Grilled cheese sandwiches only slightly burned. Scrambled eggs that were mostly the right consistency. Chicken nuggets that she was proud to say she could now make from scratch. The girls opened up more each day. Mia told her about the boy at school who pulled her hair. Zoe shared her drawings, which were actually quite good. They had inside jokes now. They had routines. When it rained, they built blanket forts. When it was sunny, they played in the backyard. Claire taught them card games she'd learned at summer camp years ago. They taught her hand clap games and songs from school. Ryan started coming home to a house filled with laughter instead of just the sound of the television. He'd stand in the doorway sometimes, just listening, before announcing his presence. Claire noticed him watching her with the girls, something soft in his expression that made her heart do strange things. They started talking more during the handoff time. At first, it was just logistics. How homework went, what they ate, any problems during the day. But gradually, the conversation stretched longer. He'd pour them both coffee, and they'd sit at the kitchen table while the girls played. Claire learned about his life, how he'd met his wife in high school, how they'd had the twins young, barely 27, how she'd gotten sick suddenly, gone quickly, left him spinning and alone with 2 toddlers, how he'd had to learn everything about being a parent overnight while drowning in grief and medical bills. "The bills are almost paid off," he told her one evening, staring into his coffee cup. "Another year, maybe. Then I can start breathing again." Claire wanted to tell him that she could write a check right now that would erase everything. That money didn't have to be this weight on his shoulders. But she couldn't, because then she'd have to explain who she really was, and she wasn't ready for that. She was too afraid of losing this normal life, this feeling of being valued for herself. So instead, she just said, "You're doing an amazing job. The girls are lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have you," Ryan said, meeting her eyes. "I don't know what we'd do without you now." The words hung in the air between them, meaning more than they should. Claire felt her cheeks warm. She looked away first. "I should go," she said, standing up. "Same time tomorrow." "Same time tomorrow," Ryan echoed. On the bus ride home, Claire stared out the window at the darkening city. She was living a double life, and it was getting harder to separate the two. During the day, she was Claire the babysitter. At night, she was Claire Chen, daughter of Richard Chen, expected to attend events and meetings and dinners with people who saw her as nothing more than her last name. Her father was getting suspicious. Her assistant kept asking when she'd be back in the office. Friends were calling, wondering where she'd disappeared to. She was running out of excuses. But every afternoon at 2:55, when she saw those 2 little girls run out of school looking for her, it all felt worth it. Every evening when Ryan smiled at her over coffee, grateful and genuine, she remembered why she'd started this. She wasn't ready to give it up. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What Claire didn't know was that Ryan was having his own thoughts. Thoughts about the mysterious babysitter who showed up exactly when he needed her, who seemed almost too good to be true, who sometimes said things that didn't quite add up, like mentioning she had to handle family business but never talking about her family, who took the bus but wore a watch that looked expensive, who claimed she couldn't cook but clearly came from somewhere with people who cooked for her. Ryan pushed those thoughts away. Everyone had their secrets. Everyone had their reasons. As long as she was good to his girls, as long as she showed up every day with that genuine smile, what did it matter? But sometimes late at night he'd wonder, and wondering would turn into something else. Something that felt dangerous for a man who couldn't afford complications. Something that felt like hoping for more than he should. Both of them, in their own ways, were standing at the edge of something neither was ready to name. Both of them were holding on to secrets that felt safer than the truth. Both of them were falling into something that was going to get a lot more complicated before it got simple. But for now, there was just tomorrow. Tomorrow at 2:55. Tomorrow with apple slices and homework and laughter. Tomorrow was enough. Ryan was having the best week of his career, which made it ironic that it was about to become the worst week of his life. It started on a Tuesday morning when his boss called him into the office. Ryan had been with Mitchell Construction for 7 years, worked his way up from general laborer to foreman. He knew every guy on his crew. He knew how to read blueprints in his sleep. He knew which inspectors were sticklers and which ones would work with you. "Got something big," his boss said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Biggest contract we've ever landed. Luxury residential development. 24 units. High-end finishes. The whole 9 yards." Ryan opened the folder and felt his eyes widen at the numbers. This was huge. This was career-changing huge. "The client wants to meet the team," his boss continued. "You, me, the lead architect? Thursday morning, downtown. Wear something nice." "Who's the client?" Ryan asked, still staring at the numbers. "Chen Industries. You heard of them?" Ryan shook his head. "Should I have? one of the biggest real estate development companies in the region. They've got projects all over the country. Landing this contract puts us in a whole different league. Ryan drove home that evening feeling lighter than he had in years. This job meant financial security. It meant college funds that wouldn't keep him awake at night. It meant maybe, just maybe, being able to breathe without the constant weight of worry on his chest. Claire was in the kitchen with the girls when he walked in. They were making cookies, or attempting to. Flour dusted the counter, the floor, and somehow Claire's hair. Mia was stirring a bowl with intense concentration. Zoe was carefully measuring ingredients with a measuring cup. "We're baking," Mia announced proudly. "I can see that," Ryan said, trying not to laugh at the state of his kitchen. "How's it going?" "The recipe says cream the butter and sugar," Claire said, looking genuinely confused. "But I don't understand how butter becomes cream." Ryan walked over and looked at the bowl. The butter was still in solid chunks. "You've got to let it soften first, or you can microwave it for a few seconds." "Oh." Claire looked at the butter, then at him. "That makes sense. I probably should have watched more than one YouTube video." "The cookies are going to be delicious," Zoe said, with the confidence of a child who hadn't tasted them yet. Ryan helped them finish the cookies, showing Claire how to cream butter properly, how to tell when the mixture was right, how to space them on the baking sheet so they didn't merge into one giant cookie. She watched everything carefully, asking questions, genuinely wanting to learn. Later, after the girls were in bed and the kitchen was clean, Ryan and Claire sat at the table with coffee and warm cookies that had turned out surprisingly well. "I got good news today," Ryan said. "My company landed a huge contract. Biggest one we've ever done, Ryan, that's amazing." Claire's smile was genuine, reaching her eyes. "You must be so proud. It's a game changer. The money from this job, it means I can finally stop worrying so much. Maybe take the girls on a real vacation. Maybe fix up the house a little." He paused. "Maybe pay my babysitter more than $15 an hour." Claire's smile faltered slightly. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. You're worth way more than what I'm paying you. You know that, right?" She looked down at her coffee. "I'm not doing this for the money. I know. But still." Ryan studied her face. "Can I ask you something? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to." Claire looked up and he saw something in her eyes. Worry, maybe. Or fear. "Why are you really here?" he asked gently. "A smart, capable person like you, working for $15 an hour, taking the bus to watch someone else's kids. There's a story there." For a moment he thought she might tell him. Her mouth opened and he saw her wrestling with something. But then she just smiled and shook her head. "Maybe someday," she said. "But not tonight." Ryan nodded, not pushing. Everyone deserved their secrets. Thursday morning came too quickly. Ryan wore the one suit he owned, the one he'd bought for his wife's funeral and hadn't put on since. It still fit, barely. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to get his tie straight. The girls were at school. Claire would pick them up as usual. Everything was normal except for the nervous energy buzzing through his body. The Chen Industries building was downtown, all glass and steel and modern architecture. Ryan had driven past it 100 times without really seeing it. Now standing in front of it, he felt small, out of his league. He was a construction guy. He knew concrete and lumber and honest work. This world of marble lobbies and designer furniture was foreign. The meeting was on the 20th floor. Ryan rode the elevator with his boss, both of them quiet. The doors opened to a reception area that probably cost more than Ryan's entire house. A woman in a perfect suit led them to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There were already people seated around the table. The architect, a couple of executives in expensive suits, and at the head of the table an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Gentlemen," the man said, standing. "Richard Chen, thank you for coming." They shook hands. Ryan tried to match the man's firm grip, tried to project confidence he didn't quite feel. They took their seats. Richard Chen began talking about the project, his vision, his expectations. Ryan pulled out his notebook, started taking notes, trying to focus. Then the conference room door opened. Ryan looked up out of habit, and the world stopped. Claire walked in. Except it wasn't Claire. Not the Claire who got flour in her hair and couldn't cut apples properly and took the bus. This was someone else entirely. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. She wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than his truck. She carried a leather portfolio and moved with the confidence of someone who belonged in rooms like this. Their eyes met across the conference room, and Ryan watched her face go pale. "This is my daughter," Richard Chen said. "Claire Chen, VP of Development. She'll be overseeing this project personally." The room was talking. People were saying things. Ryan's boss was shaking Claire's hand. The architect was asking questions, but Ryan couldn't hear any of it through the ringing in his ears. VP of Development, Chen Industries. This was her family business. This was the family business she'd mentioned in passing. This was why she didn't need his $15 an hour. This was why nothing had ever quite added up. She'd lied to him. About everything. The meeting continued around him. Ryan went through the motions, nodding at the right times, answering questions when asked. But he was somewhere else. He was in his kitchen watching her struggle with an apple. He was at the park watching her play with his daughters. He was at his table drinking coffee, sharing his life, his worries, his hopes, with someone who was apparently living a complete lie. Claire tried to catch his eye several times during the meeting. He avoided her gaze, focusing on his notebook, his boss, anything but her. When the meeting finally ended, Ryan stood quickly. He needed to get out of this room, this building, away from her. "Ryan, wait." Claire's voice behind him. He kept walking. "Ryan, please." She caught up to him at the elevator. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" He finally looked at her and he saw her flinch at whatever was in his face. "Explain how you've been lying to me for weeks? Explain how you've been playing some kind of game with my family?" "It wasn't a game," she said, her voice low. People were passing in the hallway, and she was clearly aware of them. "Can we go somewhere and talk?" "I don't think so." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. "I need to go." "What about the girls?" "I'm supposed to pick them up in an hour." Ryan stepped into the elevator. "Don't, I'll figure something else out." "Ryan." The doors closed on her face. He sat in his truck in the parking garage for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. His phone buzzed. Claire calling. He declined it. It buzzed again. A text this time. "Please let me explain. I never meant to hurt you or the girls." He deleted it without responding. Another text came through. "I understand you're angry, but please don't punish Mia and Zoe because of my mistakes. Let me at least say goodbye to them properly." That one hit him in the chest, because she was right. This wasn't about just him. The girls loved her. They talked about Miss Claire constantly. They drew her pictures and saved stories to tell her, and asked every morning if today was a school day because that meant they'd see her. How was he supposed to explain this to them? His phone rang. His sister. "Hey," he answered. "Can you pick up the girls today?" she asked. "I know it's Claire's day, but I've got a dentist appointment that got moved and—" "I need you to pick them up," Ryan interrupted. "Claire's not going to be around anymore." There was a pause. "What happened?" "I'll explain later." "Can you get them?" "Yeah, of course." "Ryan, are you okay?" "I'm fine," he lied. "Thanks." He drove to the construction site and threw himself into work. Physical labor helped. He could focus on the concrete, the measurements, the problem solving. He didn't have to think about Claire's face when their eyes met in that conference room. He didn't have to think about how stupid he'd been. His boss found him around 3. "Hey, about the meeting." "Not now," Ryan said. "Ryan, this contract is huge." "We need to talk about timeline and—" "I said not now," Ryan snapped louder than he intended. His boss held up his hands. "Okay, tomorrow then." Ryan worked until his muscles ached, until the sun started to set, until he couldn't avoid going home anymore. His sister's car was in the driveway. Inside, the girls were at the kitchen table with coloring books. They looked up when he walked in and he saw the confusion in their faces. "Where's Miss Claire?" Mia asked immediately. "Yeah, where is she?" Zoe added. "Aunt Jen picked us up and she wouldn't tell us why." Ryan's sister gave him a look that said, "You better have a good explanation for this." "Miss Claire can't work for us anymore," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why not?" Mia's voice was getting shrill. "Did we do something bad?" "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything. Miss Claire she has another job. She can't be your babysitter anymore." "But she didn't say goodbye." Zoe's eyes were filling with tears. "She always says goodbye." "I know, honey." "I'm sorry, can we call her?" Mia asked. "No. Why not?" "Because we can't. That's not fair." Mia was crying now, too. "I want Miss Claire." Ryan knelt down and pulled both girls into a hug. They cried against his shoulders, and he felt like the worst father in the world. His sister was watching with concern in her eyes. Later, after the girls were finally asleep, Ryan and his sister sat on the back porch. "You want to tell me what actually happened?" she asked. Ryan told her everything. The job, the meeting, who Claire really was. His sister listened without interrupting. "So she's rich," his sister said when he finished. "So what? So what? She lied to me. She's been lying this whole time. Did she lie, or did she just not tell you everything? What's the difference?" His sister sighed. "Ryan, I saw how she was with the girls. That wasn't fake. And I saw how you looked at her when you talked about her. Tell me you weren't starting to feel something." "That's exactly the problem," Ryan said quietly. "I was starting to feel something, and it was all based on a lie. Maybe you should hear her side of the story. There's no side that makes this okay." His phone buzzed. Another text from Claire. He'd been ignoring them all afternoon. Against his better judgment, he opened this one. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wrote something for the girls. They deserve an explanation even if you don't want one. I'm leaving it at your door. You can decide whether to give it to them or not." Ryan walked to the front door and opened it. There was an envelope on the doormat. He picked it up and went back inside. His sister had gone home. The house was quiet except for the sound of his breathing. He opened the envelope. Inside were 2 letters on nice stationery, one addressed to Mia, one to Zoe, and a third letter addressed to him. He put the girls' letters aside and opened his own. "Ryan, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I need you to understand that everything I felt, everything I shared with you and the girls was real. I took that job because I was tired of being Richard Chen's daughter. I was tired of people seeing me as a dollar sign or a business connection. I wanted to know who I was when all of that was stripped away. I found my answer in your home with your daughters, with you. I found out that I'm someone who burns grilled cheese and makes mushy spaghetti, but tries anyway. I'm someone who loves hearing about a 6-year-old's day at school. I'm someone who looks forward to coffee at your kitchen table more than any boardroom meeting. You asked me once why I was really there. The truth is I was there because for 4 hours every day I got to be just Claire. Not the heiress. Not the VP, just me. And just me was enough. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I know that now. I was selfish and scared and wrong. But please don't let my mistakes hurt those little girls. They're special, Ryan, and so are you. I'm sorry, Claire." Ryan read the letter twice, then a third time. His anger was still there, burning in his chest. But underneath it was something else. Something that felt like understanding, even though he didn't want it to. He thought about the last few weeks. The way Claire had fumbled through simple tasks but never gave up. The way she'd listened to his stories with genuine interest. The way she'd looked at his daughters with real affection. The way she'd made his house feel like a home again. Had that all been fake? Could someone fake that? He didn't know. And not knowing was almost worse than the betrayal. Outside his window, the street was quiet. Somewhere a dog barked. A car drove past. Life was continuing like normal, even though everything had just fallen apart. Ryan folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Tomorrow he'd have to figure out new childcare. Tomorrow he'd have to face his daughter's questions. Tomorrow he'd have to work on a project overseen by the woman who'd just broken his trust. Tomorrow was going to be hard. But tonight, he'd just sit in his quiet house and try to figure out how something that felt so right had turned out to be so wrong. The next 2 weeks were the hardest Ryan could remember since losing his wife. Finding a new babysitter turned out to be nearly impossible. The first woman lasted 3 days before saying the twins were too much to handle. The second one was great but could only work 2 days a week. The third showed up late every single day until Ryan had to let her go. His sister helped when she could, but she had her own job and her own life. The girls asked about Claire every day. Where was she? Why couldn't they see her? Could they at least call her? Ryan had given them Claire's letters, and they'd read them over and over until the paper was soft and creased. Mia kept hers under her pillow. Zoe had taped hers to the wall next to her bed. Miss Claire says she's sorry, Zoe said one night during bedtime. When people say sorry, you're supposed to forgive them. That's what you taught us. Ryan had no good answer for that. Work was its own special kind of torture. The Chen Industries project was moving forward, which meant meetings. Lots of meetings. And Claire was at every single one. She was professional, polite, She never brought up anything personal. She talked about timelines and budgets and building codes. She treated Ryan exactly the same as she treated everyone else in the room, like they were colleagues and nothing more. It should have made things easier. Instead, it made everything worse because Ryan could see the shadows under her eyes. He could see how her smile never quite reached her face anymore. He could see her fingers fidgeting with her pen during meetings, the same way they'd fidgeted with her coffee cup at his kitchen table. And he hated that he noticed. Hated that he cared. 3 weeks after the disastrous conference room revelation, Ryan was on site when one of his crew members got hurt. Tommy, a guy who'd been with the company for 5 years, was carrying materials across a temporary walkway when a board gave way. He fell about 8 feet, landing hard on his shoulder. The ambulance came. Ryan rode with Tommy to the hospital, calling his wife on the way, making sure she knew which hospital and that her husband was conscious and talking. At the emergency room, he stayed until Tommy's wife arrived, then hung around in the waiting room until the doctor came out with news. Dislocated shoulder, bruised ribs. Nothing life-threatening, but Tommy would be out of work for at least 6 weeks. Ryan sat in his truck in the hospital parking lot afterward, making calls. Tommy's wife to check in again, his insurance company to start the claim process, the safety inspector to report the incident, his boss to explain what happened. Then he called Tommy's wife back. "I know money's going to be tight," Ryan said, "but I want you to know we're going to make sure you're covered. Between workers' comp and the company helping out, you focus on Tommy healing, okay?" "Thank you, Ryan," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't have to call yourself. You didn't have to stay at the hospital. Tommy's part of my crew. That makes him family." After he hung up, Ryan sat there for a moment. He thought about Claire's letter, about how she'd written that she saw who he really was, about how she'd admired his integrity. He wondered if she knew this part of him too. The part that couldn't leave a guy alone at the hospital. The part that made sure his crew was taken care of no matter what. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello? Ryan Mitchell?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp, speaking. "This is Jennifer Park from Chen Industries. I'm Mr. Chen's executive assistant. He'd like to schedule a meeting with you, just the two of you if you're available." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What's this about?" He didn't specify, but he asked if you could come to his office tomorrow at 9 a.m. Ryan wanted to say no, wanted to hang up and pretend the call never happened. But this was his biggest client, the contract that was going to change his life. He couldn't just ignore it. "I'll be there," he said. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible reason Richard Chen would want to meet with him privately. None of them were good. Maybe he'd found out that Ryan and Claire had a personal connection. Maybe he wanted to reassign the project. Maybe he was going to pull the contract entirely. By the time morning came, Ryan felt like he'd been hit by a truck. He dropped the girls at school, drove downtown, and took the elevator to the top floor of Chen Industries. The executive level was even more intimidating than the conference room floor. Everything was sleek and expensive and designed to make you feel small. Jennifer Park met him at the elevator. She was exactly what her voice suggested. Professional, efficient, no nonsense. "Mr. Chen is expecting you," she said, leading him down a hallway lined with photos of various Chen Industries projects. Buildings Ryan recognized from around the city. Developments that had transformed neighborhoods. Richard Chen's office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls offered views of the entire city. The furniture was modern and minimal. There was art on the walls that Ryan suspected was probably worth more than his house. Richard Chen stood from behind his desk and came around to shake Ryan's hand. Up close, Ryan could see that Claire had her father's eyes, sharp, observant, missing nothing. "Thank you for coming," Richard said, gesturing to a seating area by the windows. 2 leather chairs with a SM